Okay, our next presenter is going to be Angela Lee from the University of Arizona. And her paper is titled Thunder Peak Pagoda, A woman's resistance power is in this depression.
Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for giving us an opportunity to present our project. I really appreciate the ASU campus. It's a beautiful campus, although a little bit tired after a long day. Okay, so my topic is focused on a Buddhist site called the Thunder Peak Pagoda, but it's also called Leifeng Pagoda. So I will use Leifeng in this presentation. Okay. So while I tracked down the feminine resistance power related to this project, I found the historical background is much more important at this point, and it also relates to the builder, the promoter of this project's resistance to Song Dynasty's government force. So what is special about this pagoda, Leifeng Pagoda, is because it was built with bricks. So that is a real brick with a hole in it, and there is a Chinese character Qian on it. And the Chinese character on this brick is just a way to record the date when the bricks was created by the laborers in pre-Song Dynasty in the kingdom Wuyue around 967. So I was intrigued by this hole, and I was thinking why they built a hole inside of a brick, and why they use this kind of a special bricks to build a pagoda. It's because they want to put the scripture, the esoteric scripture inside of the hole. So the picture on the left side is how the pagoda, Leifeng Pagoda, would look like in Southern Song Dynasty. That is by a famous painter in 12th century called Li Song. And the picture on the right side is the real photo of the pagoda in just before it was collapsed in 1924. You can see that it's been ruined and it's been damaged through dynasties, and it's not as it used to be, that sacred, that Buddhist functional type pagoda anymore. And it's just become a really cultural or literal meaning site there. Okay, so this picture shows the rebuild of the Leifeng Pagoda in 2002 by PRC. Really different type of government, right? So they have an elevator to it. You don't need to climb on it, and then you can just take an elevator to the pagoda. But of course, this pagoda is built with the steel and iron and glass, right? It's not built with the bricks. So my main argument about this special technique of building the old pagoda using the bricks with hole and put the esoteric scripture inside of the hole is, one, the promoter, the builder's individual belief pursuit, and second is his resistance, and that's the strategy when he negotiates with the Song government. And the third is because his close relationship with the Buddhist masters one of them is very prominent, the Yongming Yanshou in pre-Song dynasties, and the impact from the Buddhist masters. Okay, and that is a real scripture, and we are fortunate to see the complete look of this esoteric scripture. And on the right side, on the top, is the title of the king Wuyue. His name is Qianchu, right? So he put down his name there, and his title there, and then the date there, and then is the image of the story of Buddha was invited by laity to his place to give Dharma teaching, and on his way he saw a bunch of like ruined thing, and he told his disciple that it's not simply a ruin, it's actually a pagoda, it's a sacred site. And then it becomes dramatic, that the pagoda becomes a real pagoda, and then Buddha talked to his disciples saying there is a merits about this particular esoteric text, just by putting it inside of the pagoda, you can get unlimited merits. So the interesting thing about this image is what talked about in this image, of course, is written down as this text, right? But there is a coincidence of the destiny of Leifeng Pagoda is also like what is described in the story, that it was become a ruin in the later 20th century, and it was collapsed, and then it was rebuilt, and with the scripture putting inside. So it's a correspondent incident. And the scripture was brought back by this important esoteric Buddhist figure. He's Sri Lanka native, but he spent most of time in China, and he translated from Sanskrit to Chinese and brought that scripture in China. Okay, and then the scriptures really promote the value of reproduction, especially the merits we already talked about, right? So we know the Mahayana Buddhist tradition about reading a text or writing a text, you got a lot of merits, you get a lot of rewards. But the unique part of this text is when you put this text inside of a pagoda or inside of a temple, inside of a scripture, a statue, Buddhist status, you will get unlimited merits. So compared to writing it or reading it, it's better to just put inside of a place. So that's simple. That's very easy, right? So I just assume this king Qianchu put this scripture inside of Leifeng Pagoda is just want to get a lot of merits, and that is his belief of reproductive merits, and that is his picture. He has no real photo of him. Well, and that is his writings about his after finished the Leifeng Pagoda project. He wrote about it, and he was really proud that this project was finished in such quick time with a lot of reproductive reincarnation of the Shakyamuni Buddha and the Prabhupada Tathagata, if anyone of you could correct my pronunciations. So he actually is a strong believer in reproduction's function of those Buddhist deity. So that is the first part of his personal Buddhist belief or pursuit. And another part is he, as a politician, he as a king, he really wants to preserve his Buddhist legacy. He's a strong believer, right? So there are many scholars have been argued that he also built this Ashoka pagoda and put the same text, the esoteric text, inside of this pagoda. is a way to imitate the King Ashoka to build a Buddhist kingdom. But the manner of putting that special esoteric text in this manner is not Ashoka's manner, right? So he actually did some his unique thing through doing this. And by using the Ashoka Pagoda with putting the esoteric text inside of it, they use it as a tool to spreading his Buddhist legacy. So that is the Zhejiang province in the modern PRC, which is used to be the Wuyue kingdom in Pre-Song dynasty. And that is, the pagoda was founded throughout that region. So it's actually a very important manner from him to use the esoteric texts and this Ashoka Pagoda methodology to preserve his Buddhist legacy, especially in facing the crisis, in facing the political crisis from a very powerful king like Song Taizu. So he was about to lose his property, he was about to lose his legacy. And he also showed great flexibility and tolerance towards this powerful and unpowerful political force in China at that moment. From the way that he wrote his title in the scripture. For example, in a particular period of time, because his title was not promoted by Song Taizu, so he didn't wrote that title. And when he was promoted by Song Taizu, he rewrote his title. So it shows that he's not a careless person and he just do his own thing. No, he actually cares about what's going on around him, and he's really wary of Song Taizu's manner towards him. So he actually adapted himself to what the Song government expecting him to do. But on the other hand, he didn't stop to building his Buddhist project even until very late, the 10th century. And so he actually shows the conflict of personalities in this dilemma, in this political crisis situation. On one hand, he was reserved, and on another hand, he was bold to keep building his Buddhist project and didn't stop. And he also used some tricky and hiding strategies, technology, to use those as a tool, to use the Buddhist building site as a tool to preserve his kingdom's legacy. Yeah. So that's my main argument towards the conclusion part, that is the way of resistance. So from the breaks, from the how the Buddha was built from scriptures, Qianchu, the king of Wuyue kingdom, actually his manner of using this Dhāraṇī esoteric scripture actually indicates his individual Buddhist belief, not simply as the imitation of King Ashoka. And also in the context of his negotiation with Song government, it is an important way for him to preserve his Buddhist legacy. And by doing those projects, he showed assertive attitude towards the Song's new value towards Buddhism, without interpreting the Buddhist value with the Confucianism in the later period after Song took over the whole China. And he also showed his close relation with Yongming Yanshou, the Pure Land Buddhist masters, and how he impacted on him by doing this project. So that is really a way to resist, but it's still sad. It's a sad, disappointing moment for him to do this, to show very complex and conflicted personalities facing something really powerful and kind of control himself and cannot control his kingdom, but by using these strategies to try to preserve some really valuable Buddhist value and try to not to interpreting those values as the new false. So it's really hard moment for him to do this, but it's resistance. So it shows his wisdom, his strong belief in Buddhism. So yeah, I think it's a beautiful way to resist powerful Buddhist and a powerful Chinese force. So that's my presentation. Thank you for listening. Thank you so much.
Okay, thank you very much, Angela. Our next and final presenter will be Douglas Obert from University of British Columbia. And